Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Feeling Lighter podcast. I'm here with Dr. Lisa. How are you doing, Lisa?
I am just great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited because we're going to record some podcast episodes, and I'm always excited to talk to our series of guests because they come from a diverse set of backgrounds and lots of different ways of thinking about health and fitness. And today, we have someone who's going to help us debunk some of the myths that I think a lot of people just believe as true.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we try to focus on at WeShape is you don't have to believe all the thoughts you think, right? And most of those thoughts you think were inherited by people and you didn't question them at all.
100%.
And so today we're going to hopefully crack the door to curiosity and get you to question some of those beliefs.
Yeah.
So, are you excited?
I'm very excited.
You
This
wanna-
is my friend. So
you want to intro your friend?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I just want to welcome Dr. Asher Larmie to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you so much. Can we drop the doctors in a moment? Thanks,
Yes,
Dr. Lisa.
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's
Let it
just
go.
Asher and Lisa now. Just hanging
Asher
out.
Oh
and
no,
Lisa.
this is going to be hard for me. You guys earned those doctors.
They go really hard with the doctor around here. I'm always just shaking my head. Like, it's really cute when you're introducing me in a professional setting. Yes, great. But after that, my name is Lisa. Nobody listens, though, so it's fine.
I didn't even get to say Dr. Asher one time.
Okay, say it one time.
Okay,
You
I
do
just
it now.
did. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. All right, got
That's
it on
the
my
end.
system.
All right,
on.
done. Asher, would you please tell our audience who you are, what you do, and then we're going to get into some questions and some great content from you, I know.
So you can probably tell I'm not from the States. I am a doctor in the UK. I live in Scotland, just north of Edinburgh. I graduated medical school in 2003, which means I've been doing it for over 20 years now.
Wow.
What else can I tell you? I'm a passionate advocate for weight inclusive care. And what that means, for those who don't know, is it's healthcare, just regular healthcare, but without a focus on weight loss. Everything else is exactly the same, just we don't focus on weight loss. And I kind of got into it a few years ago. I was practicing regular non-weight inclusive medicine for 15 years or whatever, and found people like yourselves, like your good selves on the internet. I found the internet, I found social media in my 40s. I turned 40 and I got onto Instagram. Hadn't been on Instagram until I turned 40. So I was a late bloomer, found out all about kind of anti-diet stuff and health at every size stuff, things I'd never heard of before. And that didn't just influence the way I saw myself and my own body, but also how I treated my patients. And I haven't looked back since.
I love
love
that.
it.
How you treat your patients. That's so interesting. Let's start there because this medical system right now doesn't treat their patients all that well when they come in and they're classified as overweight or obese according to the BMI, right? And the advice that's always given is lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. It's the key to happiness and health and everything that you want in your life. And we know that's not true. So I'm curious immediately, like, how do you approach connecting with and communicating with your clients in a way that makes them feel included rather than excluded or shamed?
That's an amazing question. I have to sit and think about that for a second. Well, to begin with, when somebody comes into my office and they sit down in that chair, and it's usually like you've got the desk in between, there's that real divide. Here's the doctor, very professional certificates, in a frame above. I actually lost my certificate from medical school.
Of course you did.
It's somewhere, I believe, in my attic, possibly water damaged. But you know what I'm talking about. There is that kind of great big divide, and I have always been the kind of person that wanted to reach across that divide. Right? You could probably tell just by listening to me. I don't really stand on airs and graces, and I believe that medicine. I've always believed that the person sitting in front of me is a whole person. Not a set of numbers, not a set of blood results, lab results, or an X-ray or whatever. Like, this is a human being that has possibly some physical health issues, possibly some mental health issues, probably some issues with regards to their social, health and well-being, and possibly financial health and well-being, and environmental health and well-being. It's not just like, there's not just like a textbook medical case coming and saying, my elbow hurts, please fix me. So I've always had that kind of attitude. But like you said, I learned, just like every other doctor I've ever met in my life, I went to medical school and I learned that, being fat was the root of all problems. And by the way, I use the word fat rather than the word obese. They mean the same things. I personally prefer fat, but I mean obese, whichever one you prefer. I was taught that that's a big problem and it's my job to fix it. Kind of like it's my job to make sure that you're an upstanding member of society, that you don't, take painkillers unnecessarily or smoke or drink or all of this other moralizing and policing that we're taught that we have to do, which is just never quite sat right with me. It's not my job. I'm not your mother. So I did it for a long time, half-heartedly, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like, maybe you need to lose some weight. Ooh, it's a bit painful because, look at me. It's not like I've got room to talk. And now, as I've learned that actually pursuing weight loss, and I want to make a very big distinction here between pursuing weight loss and, taking part in physical activity or making some changes to your diet. These are two very different things. One is, doing something different. The other is doing something different with the intent to lose weight. And then in order to do that, you usually end up punishing yourself somehow, eating too little or whatever it is that you have to do. So when I'm talking about pursuing weight loss, I'm talking about intentional rather than just making changes to your day-to-day. I learned that that's harmful, pursuing weight loss, that there is really no long-term benefits at all. I mean, I know this sounds a little bit out there and you're probably thinking, whoa, but there isn't. I have spent years searching the literature to find a study that finally proves, yes, lose weight and 5 years down the line, you'll feel better, your diabetes will disappear, your blood pressure will be better, your knees will be better, whatever it is, I haven't found it yet. So there is no real benefit long-term. There are plenty of risks associated with it. And more importantly, when I start telling my patients, hey, let's talk about your weight, instead of treating them like a human being, I cause a lot of irreparable damage to our relationship. And that, I would argue, is actually the most dangerous thing I could do. Because even if I'm like being nice about it, because some doctors are nice. I was always a nice doctor. If I'm being nice about it, by focusing on weight, I'm often ignoring some of the important bits that, actually might be far more relevant. So I could be missing a diagnosis. I could be delaying treatment. I could be stigmatizing you. I could be, flat out discriminating against you, not allowing you to have the treatment that you need. Like, oh, you're in pain, but instead of giving you painkillers, I'm going to tell you to lose weight. Well, that's not going to help, because how are you going to do that when you're in pain? And also, I'm denying you the treatment that you deserve. That's discrimination. It shouldn't be an either or. I mean, at the very least, it should be an and, but it's definitely not an either or. So I've started, that started happening slowly. I don't know if that's really answered your question, but nowadays, when a person comes in and has a medical problem, I treat it exactly the same as I've always treated it. I just don't mention weight. It's just that simple. And when a person says, oh, I know it's going to be about my weight, I'll be like, no, actually, we've got far more important things to talk about than your weight today. And I just kind of put that to one side. Can we get back to the business of medicine, which is why you're here. You have a medical problem. I'm here to help you.
I love that.
That is so refreshing.
It's so kind and refreshing to say those things, right? And this slides me into another question I had, which I printed this post out that you posted on Instagram because you just mentioned something big, which is weight cycling. Right? Because I don't think people realize how damaging to the body weight cycling can be. So this post says, quiz time. Weight cycling, repeated bouts of intentional weight loss followed by inevitable weight restoration, is known to worsen A, joint pain, B, blood sugar, C, cholesterol, and D, heart health. And I would love for you on this to share with us the answer to that quiz.
We should answer it first and then see if we get it right.
Well, I already know the answer. You could try.
I know the answer to. Go ahead. Tell us.
There should be a pause here for dramatic effects, and like
Okay.
you can phone a friend and like no.
Right.
Well, I mean, some people were very angry at me because there was no section for all of the above, so that it was a trick question, Asher. I was like, you know what, you're right, and I apologize because it is, of course, all of the above. Weight cycling, which is essentially yo-yo dieting.
Right.
It happens, and I'm sure you've covered this before, folks, but when you attempt to lose weight, when you go into a period of energy restriction, the body essentially panics. It goes into kind of like DEFCON 1. I think I'm getting it the right way around. I think 1 is the worst, right, and 5 is the best. So it raises the threat level. I shouldn't have gone for an analogy. It raises a threat level.
We got you.
And the body responds in a multitude of different ways. So one of the main ones is your metabolic rate is reduced. Another one is that your appetite goes up. It interferes with a lot of your hormones, including your reproductive hormones, including cortisol levels, including insulin and the insulin pathway. It impacts the gut microbiome, which is like the bacteria in the gut. It impacts the barrier between the gut and the blood cells. It impacts your muscles, and it impacts where you store your fat. It impacts your genetics. This is called epigenetics, the field of epigenetics, where you have like this DNA code, but it alters the way that those genes are expressed. I mean, this is like some profound physiological changes in response to intentional energy restriction. And your body can handle a little bit of energy restriction, right? Because, that's inevitably going to happen. Human beings have evolved over thousands and thousands of years, and there were periods of time when we didn't have enough food to eat. And so we are prepared for these kind of eventualities. But when it's over a prolonged period of time, and when it's quite a significant amount of energy restriction as well, we can cause long-term damage. Now, this damage doesn't just stop when you stop dieting. This damage lasts for a long time. And eventually, the weight starts, you hit a peak. And anyone who's ever been on a diet knows you lose some weight, and then it slows down a little bit, and then it stops, and then you start regaining the weight. And it's in this process of losing and regaining, and then you start another diet and you lose it and then gain it and then lose and regain, that you're actually causing long-term damage to your body. So weight cycling is associated with, I can't remember all the things I mentioned, but diabetes, because it interferes with the insulin pathway, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. It's associated with joint pains, arthritis, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or fatty liver. I'm trying to think of all the different things. I mean, there are so many. It can impact your estrogen and progesterone levels. It can impact fertility. It can impact so many different parts of your body. And that is why I don't prescribe weight loss. Because I know that for the vast, vast majority, and I'm talking only a tiny, tiny minority of people that are able to lose weight and keep it off. And even those people who do, I would argue, have slipped into some habits that are probably quite harmful and dangerous for them.
Yeah.
Aside from that very small proportion of people, the vast majority of people are going to weight cycle. And so by recommending that they weight cycle, I'm actually causing them more harm.
You are,
and to give you a good example, is one I was just looking at the research today. If you have arthritis of the knee, right, and your knee arthritis is really bad, and you basically, the only solution for you is to give you a knee replacement surgery. That's the fix.
Yeah.
You're told, if you have a BMI of over 30 or 35, you're told almost universally you have to lose weight first. You must lose weight, because if you lose weight, it reduces the rate of complications during the surgery. It improves your long-term outcomes. It improves your pain, your function, and all of this stuff. Now, we have evidence that is conclusively proves that's not true. There is evidence that is really good quality evidence that says actually weight loss prior to surgery doesn't impact the length of the surgery, doesn't impact the length of time you're in hospital, the number of complications you have. It doesn't improve knee function in the long term. It doesn't do any of those things. I also know that every time I tell you to lose weight, I am actually causing more damage to your internal organs, to your blood pressure, cholesterol, etc., etc. So not only have I not benefited you in any way, like not helped you. I've not helped you by telling you to lose weight prior to your surgery. I've actually caused you more problems in the long term. Mm-hmm. It's my job to do no harm. Like most people know that doctors, we don't say an oath, but we do sign a piece of paper that says we will do no harm. And then we go ahead and do harm all the time. And that's not okay.
Oh my gosh. You said so many things I want to highlight. I think the arthritis example, it just hits home for me, especially as a physical therapist, because these are my patients. Like, these are the people I work with. My practice, I primarily work with people in larger bodies and people in eating disorder recovery. And oftentimes those people are one and the same. And watching them struggle to, like, go back to these very disordered habits in order to try to make weight. I'm like, that's what it is. You're making weight to be able to get approved for this medical procedure that you clearly need. And there's no evidence to support it. And so I've been able to identify a few physicians in the U.S. who will operate on people up to like a BMI of, I believe it's 40 is about as high as they'll go. And so working with them, writing letters of medical necessity, advocating for people who don't deserve this treatment. It's near and dear to my heart, but it pisses me off that we even have to do it, because it's like, so you're being a gatekeeper to this medical procedure that this person needs. Like, if you look at the radiological data, like, they need this and to have a decent quality of life, and you're saying, no, go lose weight. How do you even do that? Like, without starving yourself, which is kind of what people end up doing.
And actually, I'm going to say something a bit controversial here, but I'll stand by it and I will take it to my grave. Doctors are not denying people surgery above a certain BMI for the patient's benefit. Like, they'll tell you it's for your benefit. It's nothing to do with the patients. It has nothing to do with it, It has to do with a whole bunch of things. Number one, the length of time it will take to do surgery. They don't want to do surgeries that last longer than they need to be. Number two, the need for additional kind of support during surgery. So it might be an anesthesiologist who has a little bit of experience, or it might be you need special equipment, or it might need this, that, and the other. Yeah. They don't want the hassle. Number three, and I've heard surgeons say this, I get paid the same amount of money to do surgery on a person with a BMI of 25 than I do with a BMI of 45. Why would I do the more complicated operation? I get paid the same amount of money. I've heard it come out of the surgeon's mouth. I've even seen surgeons say it in public on like podcasts. I'm like, wow, that's brazen 2025, behavior. Doctors aren't doing it because they don't like messing with their records, right? Because doctors need to, hospitals need funding. Doctors need to have like good stats, basically. So surgeons will often be concerned about the statistics, complication rates, and people like nurses also don't want fat patients on their wards, because if I need help to mobilize a patient, if I need to mobilize a patient and they're in a larger body, then we might require two nurses, not just one. We might need to have some additional supports, like, maybe like we might need a hoist to help you out of bed. And we don't want to do that. That's a lot of hassle. Nobody wants to do that. Yeah. Nobody wants to do that. We don't have enough staff. And so actually, rather than like blaming the individual, although I do think that there was nothing in my contract that ever read, like, if it, you should always be entitled to the easy option. Like, I don't recall anyone putting that in my contract and saying, we'll pay you this amount of money, but don't worry, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be harder than you want it to be. That was not explicitly in my contract, but that's how doctors behave. That's how surgeons behave. So I want to make it very clear. The evidence is irrefutable that there is no evidence that weight loss is going to benefit you, but doctors, are, I guess, acting in their own best interests, and that is not okay. And of course, what we don't understand is the profound impact that decision has. If you have severe arthritis in your knee and you need a knee replacement, your life has become very, very small. Yeah. Your mobility is affected, your ability to go outside, you are becoming socially isolated, you are in chronic pain, that is impacting every area of your life, you're not getting enough sleep, you name it. It is impacting your life, your ability to work, to take care of your family, to have fun, to enjoy yourself is a thing of the past because of your severe arthritis. And basically doctors are damning these people to a lifetime of pain and abject misery. That's it. You don't if you have to make a certain weight in order to have an operation, and let's just say you have a BMI of 60, right, which is perfectly possible. Plenty of people out there have a BMI of 60. Yeah. You're not going to make the BMI of 40. That's not going to happen unless you have bariatric surgery, and even then it might not work. But bariatric surgery is probably your only option. Maybe Wegovy, not Ozempic, it won't work, but Wegovy might be able to get you there. But there are lots and lots and lots of complications from being on, from going for that. So if you think about bariatric surgery, the number of complications people experience, you're swapping one bad thing for another bad thing, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's an impossible situation. And I spend a lot of time with patients, as you probably guess. My clients tend to be more now people who are in chronic pain, who are disabled, who are struggling with the chronic illnesses that nobody else is paying attention to. I spend a lot of time with people who are just like, what's the point of living? I don't, there's no point. And there's nothing I can say to that, because what am I supposed to say? You're in pain constantly. Your life has become so, and people always say, my life has shrunk. It's so much smaller than it used to be. There's no joy anymore. And that's just because a doctor doesn't want to do an operation that they absolutely can do. It's not difficult. It's a relatively simple procedure. And there are lots of workarounds. And there are some surgeons, I know of some surgeons, who will even go above a BMI of 40 even.
Nice.
Crazy talk.
There's a word for what we're talking about here. And let's call it a dog when we see it, and that word is discrimination.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. I think that people are not getting the care they need because they're being discriminated against because of a system that's not supporting them in the long run.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart to hear these stories you guys are telling and recognize that if it's true that your weight is, your weight fluctuations or weight cycling is impacting you negatively in the long run, and that's the recommendation prior to being able to improve your quality of life by doing something like a knee replacement, then you're just getting bad advice on top of being denied health care. And it's like, how is that serving anybody? How is that serving anybody?
Lazy medicine, and it's so dismissive. And I really appreciate you, Asher, talking through what it looks like in a person's real life, because I don't think, I think sometimes in the medical field, we're trained to see a knee, a hip, a shoulder, and it's not a human. Like their whole lives are altered because they can't get the thing that they need. And I think that's just important to highlight. I wanted to ask you though, because, I know you mentioned, you got on Instagram at 40. You've made some waves though. Let's put that out there.
I went on and I was like, I didn't do things by halves.
Asher came in and said, fuck this. Okay, so let me, but because, we're both in that world, in that social media world, putting out these truths, these facts about what it really is, we get a lot of, rebuttals from people, usually people with no medical training. Let's put that out there. But they have a lot to say, and I just want to address this because anytime I post something about weight, BMI, weight cycling, diets don't work, all of this, it's like people come in and it's like, well, this research article said this and weight loss improves this and da-da-da. How do you, and I know sometimes I just ignore the people or block them, but when you're in the mood for educating, which you do so well, so good at it.
You've been so diplomatic in this question.
Oh my God.
I love it.
How do you educate these people on what they think they're seeing in the research, right? Because I could say anything and be like, there's research to support it, and go find some half-ass article, in People magazine, but how do you sort of educate people on what they're not understanding about the research and what they're not seeing, or, what they're just not aware of?
So the answer to that question is, I don't, for the most part, anymore. And so I learned my lesson, right? Because, like you said, I joined social media at the age of 40. And I thought for a moment I was mistaken into thinking that this was like a civilized world where we could
have a healthy debate.
Have a healthy debate with engaging conversation. And I soon learned that was not the case. And listen, I am not saying for one second I was perfect, because I wasn't. And I'm sure I engaged in a little bit of rage baiting for a while as well. So I'm not, not to say, definitely not. what I realized is that, and we're seeing it more and more anyway, is that people don't actually want to know the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. I've got reams and reams of evidence. I'm in the process of writing a book, and the research for this book, I have well over 250 references, and I am only a quarter of the way through.
Oh my God.
And that's just because I don't want to put something out there that isn't based on evidence. So when you get to that stage where I have the evidence, and I have tried to explain it in a myriad of different ways, and people don't want to hear it. And actually, I don't blame them for not wanting to hear it. I get it. We've been sold a lie for a really long time. Yeah. Nobody wants to hear that the lie that they've been sold is actually not true, and that, you know, we could have been eating whatever we wanted from the beginning. Like, no one wants to hear that. And also, nobody likes the idea of people in, like, you know, it's nice to have these stereotypes about fat people. Fat people are lazy. Fat people don't try hard enough. Fat people are greedy. They eat too much. They don't exercise enough. If we dispel those myths, then all of a sudden that means that people who aren't fat are not better than people who are fat, and we don't like to be told that. I'm sorry, we don't. Nobody likes that, right? It's like, you know, and so it's a waste of time and energy. So in terms of educating, and I am trying to do this more and more, is just creating resources on, you know, and just signposting, saying, listen, I get it, you don't believe me, that's fine, here you go, check out that, it's free, you can click on this, you know, on the hyperlinks, and it will take you to the exact paper I'm talking about. But you will, like you said, anybody can find a Google article, and one of the things that I need to make very clear about weight loss research is just how problematic it is. Yes. So the most of the studies that we find are not accurate or reliable in any way. So they are extremely biased. They're not conducted well. You know, they don't have a good method. A lot of the times you see the results and then you read the conclusions and you're like, did I just look at a different paper? Did something happen? Have I entered another dimension, because the conclusion and the results do not match up? A lot of times the research is only very short, and we know that if we want decent results from this kind of research, we need it to at least go on beyond a year, ideally beyond 2 years. So it's, you know, you can probably find me a study and I can probably rip it to shreds. Like I said, I have offered this out, and I have said, listen, find me, show me the study. I will look at it and get back to you. No one has managed to do it yet. Yeah. So we could argue about research, but it's a waste of time because people don't want to hear it. And I focus more now on the whole person. And, you know, even if, as a fat person, I'm going to tell you, even if losing weight would improve my diabetes, say, it's not worth it for me. The benefits do not outweigh the risks, the side effects, the misery, the abject misery I was in when I was dieting throughout my life. And a lot of people I meet also, like yourself, Lisa, have eating disorders. A lot of people have a history of disordered eating. Like that's the most dangerous, deadly psychiatric condition that exists in the earth today. I wouldn't want an eating disorder on anyone. So, you know, even if it does work, people are like, of course it works, here's a paper. And I'm like, even if it does, even if that's true, I disagree, but even if it's true, it's still not going to change my mind. And even if you think I'm dangerous, which a lot of people do, I'm talking about weight stigma, and that's not something we've talked about much, but the damage that weight stigma does. I mean, we've got studies that show just how dangerous weight stigma is, how people are dying as a result of weight stigma. And forget the studies. I know people whose cancers were missed because of weight stigma. I have 100%. A very good friend who is dying of stage 3 ovarian cancer. She presented to her doctor for 2 years with clear symptoms of ovarian cancer, literally listed every single symptom, and she was told to eat less, exercise more, and work on her stress, because she was a woman, so she was clearly stressed all the time. And so just deal with your emotions, stop being so hysterical, eat less, exercise more. For 2 years, until there came a point in time where she just couldn't eat even 2 spoonfuls of soup. She kept saying, I've lost my appetite, I can't eat. And they were like, look at the state of you, of course you're eating. Big. Yeah. She eventually saw a doctor who, for the first time in months, actually laid a hand on. In fact, not months, in years, laid a hand on her abdomen. She had a tumor in her abdomen that was 20 centimeters, I don't know how many inches, that's at least 10 inches in diameter.
Oh my God.
It was so large that it had pushed all of her abdominal organs up, and that had then pushed her diaphragm up, and that was constricting on her lungs, which is why she was short of breath. It took them another 8 weeks to take the tumor out because they wanted to stage her first in an MRI scanner, and there is not an MRI scanner in the country that was big enough for my friend. She's not, I just want to point out, she's not like a weight that is completely unreasonable. This is a perfectly mobile, person who gets on a bus and gets on a train. Like, this is not, she was, just in a larger body. So it took another 8 weeks. Now she has, end stage cancer, and she's dying, and there's nothing she can do about it. And if a doctor had, it wasn't even, if you ask her, the worst part wasn't the fact that she's dying, although that of course is a big thing. It's also the way she's been treated over and over again. Yeah. The things people say, even to this day, she's like, there is no more treatment available to her. And to this day, people are still telling her to have bariatric surgery. Have you considered weight loss surgery? She has end stage ovarian cancer. And that is what we're dealing with. And if you think that's an extreme case, it's kind of extreme, but actually that is the reality for a lot of people. And that kind of that level of I don't know what it is. I don't understand how there's no compassion. There's no, I just don't get it. But that is a very common experience for a fat person going to see a doctor. And I feel so deeply ashamed to be part of a profession that does that to people. It's not something to be proud of. People are always like, oh, wow, you're a doctor. And I'm like, you say that like it's a good thing. But, it feels more like saying I'm a politician or I'm or I work for the IRS or something. It's not something to be proud of, really, honestly. When you talk to people, that's some serious shit.
It makes me feel so sad that people attempt to advocate for themselves and are treated differently and are ignored. And then something like that happens that could have been preventable. I mean, let's get real. Early detection is a huge part of this, and to be ignored for years and blamed on your weight is just appalling. It's so sad. It's so sad that the medical field's like that. Earlier you mentioned something, and I wanted to come back to it, because unfortunately we still do live in a world that is weight obsessed, and the doctors are weight obsessed. And this miracle comes out. This Wegovy, the miracle. These weight loss drugs, right? And there's a lot of controversy and a lot of back and forth on whether or not this is beneficial. And I'm of the camp that I tend to see people losing bone density and muscle mass and a lot of things that are really beneficial as we grow older to maintain our quality of life and ability to move. But I'm curious about your opinion on these types of things.
For me, dramatic weight loss that we see on Wegovy is, and it is very dramatic, right, is very dangerous for the reasons that you said. I mean, when you lose weight, you don't just lose fat, you lose muscle. In fact, you lose muscle in preference to fat. And the last thing you want to do is lose muscle, is impact your bone density. There's also a lot of gastrointestinal effects from these drugs that are now we're beginning to realize permanent. So some of the symptoms that people get, gastroparesis is one of them. That's a permanent thing. That's not coming back. It's not getting fixed.
What is that? Just so.
So it's basically where these drugs interfere with the natural movement, the peristaltic movement of your gut, right? So the gut, whenever you eat, is squeezing, essentially, and moving things along. And so that is damaged, possibly through nerve damage. We're not entirely sure how that happens, but we do know that people end up with a condition where the food kind of often will get stuck. You'll get sickness, you'll get pain, extreme pain, vomiting, and gastrointestinal symptoms, but they never go away. And it's not like, stop medication. Now,
God.
That's not everybody, but it is a risk. And there is now a lawsuit. There is a woman who is suing Novo Nordisk. And you might be thinking, poor Novo Nordisk, that's the people who manufacture Wegovy. But just to be clear, drug companies, this particular drug company is set to make about $450 billion. And they will always set aside a sum of money, say $500 million. I don't know,
Lawsuits.
for lawsuits. They set that money aside. This
Bacon
company,
the price.
yeah, this company has been sued multiple times for insulin price gouging, and they did it during like the Gulf War as well. Like they did it at a really awful time. They have been lying to their patients about the cancer risk of these drugs, because this drug is linked to thyroid cancer, and so they haven't been telling them. The FDA was like, you need to tell your patients, and they're like, yeah, okay, maybe not, and they didn't, and then they got sued. And they're prepared. They have the money set aside for these lawsuits. So these drugs cause you to lose weight for the first year to 2 years. That's all we know. That's literally all we know. In fact, we begin to see the weight regain happening around the 2-year mark, but we stopped studying it after that. You ask anybody who has been on Ozempic long-term for diabetes, did you lose weight? Yes. Did you regain it? Yes, because it's inevitable. Unfortunately, the body will reset itself, the metabolic rate resets itself, and so on and so forth. And most people actually end up gaining weight on the drug. We'll see. In a few years' time, we'll see. I'll be proven right or wrong in a few years' time. But we do know that it is harming people. We do, in multiple different ways. But for me, it's how quick it happens. The body is not prepared to lose that much weight that quickly. No. And it works simply by switching off your appetite. So you're just not hungry anymore. And when I put people on on semaglutide, which is the drug, Wegovy is actually the drug semaglutide, it was first created for the purpose of treating diabetes. And up to 1 milligram of semaglutide per week is the treatment dose for diabetes. So I've used this drug many times, nothing to do with weight loss, just to treat diabetes. And my patients universally hate it. They're miserable on this drug. There are very few who come along, go, yeah, it's fine. I will tell them that chances are you're not going to like this medication very much. Most of them will have to stop it, or at least reduce the dose, because they can't hack it. But when you're doing it for weight loss, it's just like, well, it doesn't matter how much I'm suffering, because being thin is the ultimate goal in life, right? It's worth it. Whatever it is, it's worth it. So yeah, I have a lot of issues with this drug, but my biggest issue is the drug company. Mm-hmm. And if you think back, not too long ago, there was a drug company called Purdue Pharma. They took a drug called oxycodone, and they turned it into a slow release form of the drug, OxyContin, and they went on an incredible PR marketing campaign, the likes of which we've never seen before. This was a pretty small, irrelevant drug company. It's not one of the big ones. And within a few years, their profits were through the roof. And they did this through a series of very clever PR and marketing strategies, which we all know about and can find out about because there's books about it, and there's TV shows about it, and there's podcasts about it.
I watched that documentary.
Exactly. We know. And one of the things that they did, one of the ways, was to convince doctors that this was a good drug, against their better judgment, because we knew that you didn't give opioids for mild to moderate pain. We knew this, we had been taught that from day one, but we were convinced otherwise. And the thing that scares me about this drug company is that they are behaving exactly the same way. Yeah. They are behaving in a way that drug companies are not exactly the most ethical.
you think?
It's not the most ethical industry, right? It's not like you're like, oh, drug company, no, okay, fine. But they are behaving in a way that I have never seen before. The amount of times they are lying and deceiving doctors in order to get us to prescribe this drug, the flat out lies they're telling us, that's the bit that terrifies me the most. I get why people want to take it. I have had moments when I was like, maybe I should take it. Would make my life a lot easier. My doctors would treat me nicer. People would treat me nice. I get it.
100%. Yeah, that's important.
But and even the doctors, I get it because we're being brainwashed, but there is no excuse for what they're doing. And they know it's wrong. And they know, they stole the playbook from Purdue Pharma. They stole it and they're just copying it. And it's like you can almost predict what they're going to do next, because you just have to look back 20 years. And we know how that turned out. We are still feeling the effects of Oxy. In fact, in a way that maybe we don't think about, it's not just the people who are addicted, which of course the opioid addiction is a really massively big problem. But also, going back to chronic pain and your patients with osteoarthritis, in the US, if you have arthritis of the knee, you get Tylenol, maybe some ibuprofen, and then you're like, okay, that's not working. What's next, doc? And they're like, well, that's it. We can't give you anything else because opioid crisis. And in the UK, where we didn't have an opioid crisis because Purdue Pharma didn't get here, they didn't manage to cross the ocean, where we never had oxy. I never prescribed oxy in my life. And we don't have the same issues that you have in North America. If you have osteoarthritis, you get Tylenol and then you get ibuprofen. And if that doesn't work, then, maybe we'll switch you to naproxen. And if that doesn't work, we'll give you some codeine, we give you some Vicodin, because actually, guess what? These drugs have been around for a really long time and they do treat chronic pain. Right. But if you can't get pain relief now, that makes life even harder. So the consequences of one little drug company, one guy, really, in one drug company, one family, they changed the way that we practice medicine forever. Yeah. And I am concerned about about how this drug is going to impact people in the long term. And I don't want it to get to the stage where 5 years from now we're going, a whole bunch of people have diabetes and they didn't have diabetes before. Why is that? Oh, it turns out that semaglutide is messing with a healthy pancreas and creating insulin resistance, and in doing so is leading people to diabetes. That's a possibility. I don't want a whole bunch of people to be like, why do I have pancreatic cancer? Like, that came out of the blue. Oh yeah, well, because we've been messing with your healthy pancreas. I don't want that to happen. I don't want a whole bunch of people to say, I cannot eat food anymore and I am sick. Every single day of my life, I'm vomiting every time I eat a meal. I can only drink my food now. And I'm 30. I don't want people to say that. I don't want people to be dying from taking this medication. And then to look back and go, oh, we kind of knew that might happen, but we ignored all the warning signs. I guess you can sue if you like, and maybe you'll get a bit of a payout. That's not it. That's not how it should go.
No replacement for your health and your quality of life. No amount of money is.
Yeah. We've spoken to something that I feel like is this part of our bodies that people don't quite understand, which is like we are hardwired to adapt and survive, right? And when we mess with our body, when we start doing things like severe calorie restriction to try and lose weight, or in the case of things like Wegovy, Ozempic, etc., like it basically doing that for us, that we're creating this adaptation that's like, I am stressed, I am going to die, the world needs to I need to be adapted towards this thing. And it has so many negative impacts on the body and the hormone systems, right? Like this is all the stuff you've already said. And I'm just mind blown by the reality that people think of that and they think, oh, it's good, right? Like if I lose weight, it's good.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's great. This is the thing to do. And so how do you help people combat that mindset? Right, we kind of led in with that a little bit, but I'm just so curious. Like when somebody's like, they come in and they're like convinced, I need to lose weight. That's what's going to happen here. It's going to be the answer to all my problems. Like, how do we tackle that mindset and help them understand? Not only is this not going to solve the problems, but it could make everything a lot worse for you in the long run.
Yeah, I think that when they're coming in with that belief, that it's not just a case of, hey, I'm going to give you some evidence, I'm going to give you a fact sheet and you can read it and you can be logical about it, because it's not logical.
No, it's not.
What we're saying here is I want to control my health. We all want to control our health. We want to control our destiny. We want to control something, whether it's our bodies, whether it's the way we look, whether it's our, how long we're going to live, whether it's, our health in terms of developing an illness or treating an illness, whatever it is. I like the illusion of control. I like the idea that I can do something to control this, because otherwise I have to live with the reality that I have zero control, zero power in the situation, that my body is in charge. And it makes me, I have all the time and the space and the compassion for people who are in that situation. I'm not like, what's wrong with you? I genuinely think I get it. You need to feel like you have some control over your body. And this is a really easy way to control your body. It's why so many young people develop eating disorders. Because in a situation where things feel out of control, this is a way to control your environment, to control maybe your emotions, control your pain. So it's complicated, and I get where people are coming from. And so I start there. I start trying to figure out, like, what's going on? Like, where, you know, what are your beliefs? What are your concerns? What is your past experience? What is your reality like? Like, where is this coming from? So trying to get to know the person is my first step. And I think, you know, we have been taught, like you said, and you've alluded to this, we have been taught from the beginning, from like the age of 6 months, we're born, and then for the first 6 months, we're fed when we need to be fed. We're allowed to sleep when we need to sleep. We're basically allowed to do whatever we want to do until we're about 6 months old. And then the rules come in, and we have decided as a society that what the body wants and what the body needs is not what we're going to give it. And it's become a little bit of a game. Like, you know, what does the body want? The body wants to be happy. And so, like, we punish it by making it so. What is the body, like, movement, for example? Movement should be pleasurable, right? Like, and even if there's like a mild discomfort, it should never outright hurt. But we're like, no, you got to do this and you got to do that, and like you have to override what the body is telling you. It's the same with food. I'm hungry. Wow, you can't eat, or you have to wait until this, or you can't eat this before you eat this, or you know, you have to finish your plate, or you can't finish your plate. You know, there's always rules, all these rules to control our bodies. And what we forget is our bodies fucking incredible. You know, like, I spent years studying this incredible feat of I refuse to believe that it just happened accidentally or coincidentally. I'm not a religious person, but this is amazing. This is way better than any computer. This is, you know, we are literally made out of stardust. That's how incredible our bodies are. And so I am, you know, and our bodies have checks and balances, and that's what we were talking about. Like, there's a check and a balance. Breathing, you never think about breathing, right? But your body breathes because your carbon dioxide and oxygen levels are constantly shifting, and there is a part of your brain that senses this, and then there's the autonomic nervous system that controls it. You breathe, you know, 16 breaths per minute, or 12 breaths per minute, or 8 breaths per minute, depending on how healthy you are, or how good your cardiorespiratory fitness is, I should say. And you don't think about it. At no point in time do you think about it. But if I was to interfere with that, like with those rules, you'd feel sick really quickly, and then you'd die within a few minutes. And, you know, let's pick something else, like going to the bathroom. Right? You know that you drink water, and after a while you need to go to the bathroom, and you'll be lying in bed, or you'll be sitting up, and like all of a sudden your bladder starts barking at you and it's like, hey, we need to go. And your brain's like, cool, yeah, let's go find a bathroom. And then you go to the bathroom and you do your business, and then you leave, right? And sometimes your bladder's like, hey, we need to go. And your brain's like, well, we can't, not right now. We're in the middle of a meeting or recording a podcast. You're going to have to wait. And so we can put it off for a little bit, but not indefinitely. Right. And if we do put it off for long periods of time, what we're going to do in the end is we're going to damage our blood and muscles. We're going to damage the nerves that supply our bladder, and we're going to end up with all sorts of medical problems and needing to see a doctor like me, because you've done some damage, and it, you know, now you have unfortunately developed incontinence. Nobody wants that. And so, like, I will often talk to people about body trust, that your body absolutely knows what it needs. It absolutely does. Now, you might not be able to hear it very well right now, and that's because for the last however many years, your body's been asking for stuff and you've just been flat out ignoring it. And so how can your body trust you if you don't trust your body, right? Like, so you're going to have to get back into a relationship of trust with your body. And that might take a little bit of time, and that's okay. And I'm here to support you for that journey. But when I start talking about like what you need, what your body needs, what is your body saying to you, things like that, people will often realize it's not a diet. Like, and nobody is sitting there thinking, I really want to stop eating the food I love and punish myself at the gym. Like, you know, if you want to exercise, which I think is great, if you want to move, you want to go do something fun, right? Like, I want to go and do this fun thing that looks like, you know, that really makes me happy. Not, I'm going to go and make myself miserable. So we start to tune into what the body is asking, and start listening to the body and getting the body and giving the body, and not just listening, but then saying, all right, I'm going to give you what you need. You want to rest, you can rest. You want to sleep, you can sleep. You want to, you know, and by the way, that's very difficult in the world that we live in. I get it, because we do not live in a world that is particularly well set up for body trust. But that's kind of where I start. And then
I love that.
The rest.
We could talk all day.
I love
Literally
that.
all day.
Body trust. That is incredible. What a good message. And, you know, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your wisdom with us. And where can people find you?
So I go by the Fat Doctor because I am a doctor and I am also fat. So I am the Fat Doctor, and you can find me at fatdoctor.co.uk, not com. I was too stingy and I didn't get .com, and now I regret it. But I'm fatdoctor.co.uk, or I am at the Fat Doctor on the Instagram and the YouTube. But head to my website and you will be able to find all sorts of resources. And as I said, I have a lot of stuff on there for people who are at any stage in the journey looking for information about weight inclusive care.
And go to noway.org.
Oh, yeah.
WEIGH. That is the best platform. How do you not say that, Ashley? That is the best platform for all the information and all the research. And it's so easy and simple. Awesome. I use it all the time in my talks and everything. So noway.org. Okay.
Yeah,
I love
you could probably do that as well. I forgot I had a second website.
Well, thank you again, Asher. I hope everybody listening feels a little bit lighter now that they can let go of some of these stigmas that we've all been taught. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you.